I'm very excited to have my second guest tonight. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Thoroughgraph figures and the Thoroughgraph sheets, but my next guest, Jerry Brown, is the proprietor, I guess, and president of Thoroughgraph, and has been doing it for many years. So I'm very interested in talking to him about what he does exactly and maybe enlightening everybody here. So let's give a big hand to Jerry Brown. Thanks for coming, Jerry. So for people here who may be unfamiliar with Thoroughgraphs, can you explain a little bit to everybody what exactly they are?
We publish ratings. I can hear you better this way.
Okay.
We publish ratings that incorporate more than just speed figures do. They incorporate weight, ground loss, effect of wind on the race, and we put it all in one figure, and then we put all the figures for an individual horse on a graph. So when you buy the product, you're looking at a graph for each horse, and you're both comparing that horse to other horses in the race and looking at that horse in terms of his own form cycle.
And you, as one of their methodologies in using them, is believing that horses are constantly have a cycle and they cycle in and out of form?
Yeah, we do not believe that form is a constant. We believe that form is constantly changing. Horses get better and worse, and one of the things that you'll hear is the concept of the bounce, where a horse runs a maximum effort, and we expect it to run worse next time when a lot of the public is playing the horse to run well next time.
And do you, when you explain to people, I mean, obviously it's more in depth than that. Do you show people how to use them in the way you would use them?
Yeah, we have information on the website that's introductory and explains that stuff, and we have a couple of seminars weekly up here for people who've already used the data. They're not really for beginners.
Right.
But through the website, the best way to find out is through the website, thoroughgraph.com.
But people use them, and not just, obviously a lot of bettors use them, but also people use them in buying horses and placing their horses. A lot of trainers use them.
Yeah, Sal Kuman is using them for everything he does.
He owns every horse in racing.
Pretty much. He seems to, yeah. Under about 4 different names. What is stable names?
Got a lot of names. Yes.
Yeah. But I also do consulting, advising people which horses to buy. Some of his are on my advice, some are not. And we also help manage the horses.
And you've been doing this for how long?
My entire adult life.
Right. So a year.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Not even.
None of us up here are adults.
A week ago.
So what would you say to somebody who said, obviously there are other speed figure products out there. What do you believe it is about Thoroughgraphs that sets you apart from other speed figures available?
Yeah, well, everything is based on what you decide the track speed is, and what separates us from the other guy who makes a similar product, who shall remain nameless.
Well, there's also a lot of speed figures out there, and a lot of people use the buyer figures. They're in the daily
right. Well,
form.
What separates us from those are speed figures, ours are performance figures, which incorporate other elements. Right. But in terms of just methodology, we do not believe the track speed stays constant. We believe it's changing throughout almost every day, and the track variant is changing almost every race.
How much do you have? How many people work for you in total at Thoroughgraph?
10 full-time and 15 or 20 at trackmen who are working part-time.
And you have people basically at every racetrack, and do they try to monitor the work that's being done on the racetrack?
They're supposed to be doing that, yeah.
Finding out some of them aren't.
Yeah, well, they're not necessarily at the track. A lot of them are doing it off TV screens. We have, one guy who's doing 3 or 4 tracks in the Delaware Valley. So he can't always get that, but they're supposed to get wind speed and direction and clock the race from the gate. We work back to get the run-up out, to get to track time.
For people who aren't familiar with run-up, just to explain that, races aren't, the gate is not exactly, if a race is 6 furlongs, 3/4 of a mile, the gate is not 6 furlongs. In Europe it is, but we're talking about America. The gate is not 6 furlongs from the finish. It is 6 furlongs and a certain amount of feet. It could be a small amount, it could be a larger amount, and it's different for different distances. The difference from where the gate is and when the race actually begins getting timed is known as the run-up distance. A long run-up is going to get the horses going faster, so you'll see a faster early fraction. I don't know if you've noticed at Saratoga, the 6.5 furlong races will often have a very fast early quarter. That's because there's a turn. They have to start the race before the turn, so there's a long run-up. So the horses are going really quickly, much more quickly they are at the 6 furlong and 7 furlong races. A long run-up, faster first fraction, a short one, slower.
Yeah, at Pimlico, the 6 furlong run-up is about 3 feet.
Right.
And you'll very often hear people say that the fraction inside the Preakness is faster than the track record for 6 furlongs, and that's because the run-up in the Preakness is 100 feet.
Right.
And the run-up, for 6 furlongs is 3 feet, literally 3 feet.
Yeah, now if you watch the Dubai World Cup, you'll see the first quarter seems really slow. There's no run-up at all. It starts right there. So it's really probably a good second and a half.
Right.
Sort of. So if they went 24-3, it's almost like going 23 if there was a run-up.
Yeah, Gulfstream last week had a 294-foot run-up, by the way.
Gulfstream will run 7.5 furlong and 1 mile races on the same course. And the run-ups are so much different, so they're virtually the same amount of distance from the starting gate to the finish line.
Yeah, they're just
it's very
clocking from a
deceptive,
different
actually.
point. Yeah, that's right. They're clocking from a different point.
Yeah. And the run-ups are available. They are, but sometimes you want to measure themselves. Anyway, as you were saying, I just wanted to explain run-up.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
We clock from the gate to bring it back to track time to catch a timing error, and there are some. You're going to see more of them in what you do, which is fractional times. You're much more interested in pace than we are. We only measure the things that we consider to be actually measurable. We don't try to make any determinations. We leave that to the handicapper, and I do that myself when I handicap. But in terms of what we sell, we try and sell something that's as objective as possible. It's still got some judgment involved in terms of the track speed, but as objective as possible.
How many customers would you say you have that are horse players, that are bettors? Do you have any idea?
Well, the online number of accounts is about 12 or 13,000, and they're not all active. On Derby Day, maybe 1,500 people buy the data. I'm getting from the seat of my pants, something like that. Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, what percentage of the betting pool do you think you are in New York, for instance? What percentage? Of the
I don't
pool
know. Our average guy.
Not yourself. I know you yourself are a percentage of it.
Yeah, with the new thing we're doing a joint venture with
Naira bets.
With Naira, yeah. The average guy is betting about $450 or $500 a day with that,
That's
which
a
is
lot.
much more, probably 3 times the per capita, something like that, maybe 4 times. But I don't know to what degree our data is being used by the batch bettors or anybody like that, because they're not telling me. If they're using it that way, they're using it that way.
So how did you get involved in horse racing?
I was sitting in a place where we went when we cut school, and I was reading racing. Yeah, I was reading a racing forum, which I'd been to the track literally 3 times. And a guy came by and offered me a job, and I thought he was trying to pick me up because it was Greenwich Village. And I was 19 years old, and it was Ragusan, and he offered me a job. And as it happened, my father was about to throw me out of the house if I didn't get a job. So I went to work for Ragusan as a clerk, and then became a professional bettor using his stuff briefly, and managed a racing stable for Dennis Hurd that did really well. And then he and I didn't get along
with Glenn
at
Lane
all.
as well? With Glenn?
No, Glenn was after me. That was after I left Ragusan. But Ragusan and I hated each other's guts. And eventually he forced me out because I was actually doing too well, if you want to know the truth. And then I went up against him. This is what happened. When we would argue, it would get so loud that the woman who took care of the office would lock herself in the bathroom.
Jerry and I have been known to have a few arguments over time. Our arguments are nothing compared to those arguments.
The others are louder, for sure.
Well, some of Jerry and my arguments are long, sustained text arguments, so they're very quiet. But they feel loud while I'm having them. So this was a long time ago. I mean, you've been in the game for over 40 years.
Yeah.
And how long have you been coming to Saratoga? Because, I mean, you come here, you spend probably more time at the track in Saratoga than you do the rest of the year
by
at
far.
racetracks.
Yeah, I mean, how often do I come here?
How long have you been coming here? When did you first come here?
First time I came here, Ragusan sent me up here. He had to claim a horse. He told me to come to the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. He gave me a paper bag with $25,000 cash and made me a lunch with a milk and a roast beef sandwich.
That's nice.
And put me on a bus to come up here and deliver $25,000 to the horse's bookkeeper to claim a horse. I'd never been up here before in my life. Put me on a Trailways bus.
What year was this?
When I was 19. Well, it's a long time ago. We'll go with that, right?
Jerry's 26.
And
so
I took a bus 3.5 hours each way, and this was all news to me, this whole thing up here.
So were those the days when the sheets were given out, the Ragusans, at the bus station?
Yeah.
They used to come up.
And we were doing that for a while
after
that, yeah.
Right. It's amazing. I mean, it's sort of the days when the racing forum used to come up at night as well.
The diner's not there anymore.
The Spot City Diner is not there, and the buses come to the train station, actually.
Yeah.
Big change. No, I missed the Spot City Diner. So let's talk horses. It's funny, Richard Migliore is going to be on next, and I want to talk about horses with him a little bit and just get some of your thoughts and some recent horses. First of all, I want to talk to you a little bit in general. A lot of people think that horses are slowing down. You look at speed figures. I know you're somebody who believes that is not the case.
The track cushion at Belmont, when Secretariat was running, is 2.5 inches deep. It is now 4 inches deep. Okay, it's a gigantic difference. Tracks in the old days had a higher percentage of clay in them That's why when they got wet, they would get much slower. Now they get faster because it's almost all sand. It's like when you walk along the beach where it's wet, it's going to be packed down. So there's more sand in there. When the track is so-called fast, which means dry, it's way slower. I think it probably works out to about a second at 6 furlongs for half an inch in depth, is my guess. I think if they ever brought this down to 2.5 inches depth, you see some unbelievably fast times now.
So when you look at horses, recent horses, what do you think of Justify? I mean, obviously he didn't run that many times. Do you think that he could have been a true great?
No.
No, not that good.
He's good. I mean, he's not Smarty, he's not Rachel, he's not American Pharoah, not even close. And he's probably 5 to 6. On our figures, he was about 3 points slower, so it'd be about 6 lengths at a mile and a quarter.
Than an American Pharoah.
Yeah.
Where do you put American Pharoah? I mean, do you go as far back as horses like Slew and Affirmed and Alydar and Secretariat? So
I was still at Raguson's for that. We go back to mid to late 80s.
So where would you put a horse like American Pharoah in sort of the pantheon of good horse, obviously very good horses?
You have to take Triple Crown 3-year-olds as a different thing because they're not, as horses get older, they get faster. Right. So he's not as fast as Ghost Zapper or anywhere near it. But for a 3-year-old in May, he's very fast. I mean, he and Rachel and Smarty were basically the three. Now, there are individual insanely fast numbers like that Dreaming of Julia number down in Florida a few years ago, but that was one and done. Right. That's out. Okay, but in terms of horses actually running a sequence, those three are probably the best 3-year-olds.
Really?
Yeah.
Even in the last 25 years, better than horses like a Silver Charm or
oh yeah.
What about Point Given?
He's very good. I thought he should have won a Triple Crown actually, but he was not as fast as these.
What about Risen Star? Were you doing figures?
He had one enormous race. The Belmont was enormous and it cooked him. That was it.
He never ran again after that. What about Arrogate when Arrogate ran those 4 big races?
Super fast, but he started later.
Right.
Okay, you're not talking about a spring 3-year-old.
No, I understand. I'm just like his Travers. Where would you put his Travers?
It was a -5, which was better than any of those other 3 ever ran. They ran about the -4 level. So he was better than them, but they didn't get to the, well, Rachel did, but the other ones didn't get to the point. By the way, fillies on average are 3 points slower than colts. If you adjust for that, she's like the greatest 3-year-old of all time.
Well, what was she running when she was a 3-year-old, when she was drowning colts?
-4s, which for a filly is absolutely ridiculous.
She was incredible. Now, how about a Gunrunner? Where would you put Gunrunner last year as the year went on?
Close to Ghost Zapper.
Really?
Close. He didn't quite get there, but close to Ghost Zapper.
Was Ghost Zapper, I mean, for me, Ghost Zapper is one of the best horses I've ever seen.
Of the ones who ran it consistently, yeah. That horse of McLaughlin's who won the Met ran a...
Oh, Frost did in his Met Mile.
But that was, again, one big number and out.
Why do you think a horse will run, whether it was Dreamy Julia or Frost? I mean, Frost is a horse who had a long career. Why suddenly was it the one-turn mile? Or is this do you think it's a loaded question?
Do you really want to ask me this question?
No, I didn't want to really ask
you don't
that
want to
question. So you don't really go back that far with horses. Do you ever look historically? Were you ever curious to think about like old time? Because sometimes I'll talk to Andy Beyer and he's like looked and they say that Count Fleet may have been the fastest of all the Triple Crown horses.
I could get into why he thinks that. They use pars, and if you use pars, then the only thing you're really measuring is how fast the top horse is compared to the rest of that group. If you make 10 claimers always a 10, as an average, then they're always going to be a 10. Right. So if the whole breed is getting faster, you're not going to catch it if you use pars.
So a par time is an average time they use to make their speed figures and create to figure out how fast or slow the track is on a given day. What exactly do you do that's different?
Well, you start out using pars, but once you've got a database, you do completely projection, what Steve Chris calls a projection method, which is just use the horses.
You just believe based on the horses that are running in a given race, how quickly the race should go, and if it's faster or slower, you use that to try to determine how fast or slow the track may be.
Right. I mean, once you start adjusting for weight and ground loss, you'd be shocked at how tight the figures can get. I mean, it can get very, very tight.
Do you use Trackus for the ground loss, or do you find
No, I'm going to look at that again at some point. When they started out, some tracks, shall we say, were better than others.
Right.
Okay?
Well, I think it's still the case.
Yeah. I haven't looked, but that'd be my guess.
I like to look. I don't know. I'm not sure what it means, but I like to look. I just find it interesting sometimes. Sometimes to look at the times, obviously, when there are strange times up there. Jerry, it's been very enlightening.
Good talking to you, Andy.
Thanks so much for joining us. Jerry Brown from the Thoroughbred.
Thank you.